Hello, and thank you for joining me. I am Mbaya, and this is Recap, a look at the week's top PC gaming announcements, news, and releases for the week ending 12th of December 2015. Creative Intelligence Arts have announced that Project Phoenix, a squad-based real-time strategy JRPG from a series of experienced game developers, has been delayed until mid-2018 at the earliest, 3 years away from its initial target. Originally, the team set out to change the direction of Japan's games industry and successfully crowdfunded the game to a total of around $1 million, yet it's come to light that they seem to currently just have a single programmer, and other commitments mean he can't continue developing for the game for another 2 months. The developers are pressing on with the game's development, even given the lack of progress thus far, and are not considering refunds as an option just yet, and have stated that if somebody starts taking legal action, it will result in the end of the project, as they will have no ability to defend themselves and fund the game. While the initial pitch claimed that many of the developers have committed themselves to the ambitious project in a creative leap of faith, it appears many of them are also busy juggling other projects, which hasn't helped ease development along. Something the game's director claims is the norm for any freelancing video game developer. The team once stated that they were putting their reputations on the line with this project, so here's hoping they can still turn it around and release a great game. HTC, in collaboration with Valve, have revealed they plan to make their virtual reality headset, the HTC Vive, commercially available in April 2016, and have also announced an additional 7,000 units will be made available to developers early next year. While it does end the speculation surrounding just when it shall release, it's still a fair few months away, and while there doesn't exactly seem to be a so-called killer app revealed just yet, there will be a developer conference on December the 18th that could showcase some new experiences and will introduce the second generation of the developer's kit. While we're still awaiting a price and exact release date beyond the first quarter of 2016, Occulus have announced all those who pre-order their commercial VR headset, the Oculus Rift, will also receive a copy of CCP's space combat game, Eve Valkyrie. It's worth noting that if you were looking forward to getting your hands on Eve Valkyrie but hadn't yet made your mind up between the Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive, the game will be an Oculus Rift exclusive at launch, though no word has yet been given on just how long other platforms will have to wait before they can play. Elite Dangerous Horizons will be starting to roll out new content for purchasers from December the 15th. It's a bit of a weird one this, as while technically an expansion pack, it is instead more akin to a season pass that will drip feed new content to players through December and over 2016. Starting with the introduction of planetary landings, giving you access to the surface recon vehicle, the Scarab, to drive around planets finding crushed ships, mineral deposits, and locating outposts and fortresses. You'll also eventually get access to multi-crew ships, character customization, ship-launched fighters, new missions and ships, and close-quarter combat arenas. There isn't exactly an upgrade path for existing owners, however, as Elite Dangerous Horizons will cost £39.99 and include all of the base game's content, though those that already own the original Elite Dangerous will be offered a £10 discount for a limited time and will receive an exclusive in-game spacecraft. So if you've not yet bought the game and are interested, wait until December the 15th to buy the Horizons edition and you could save yourself about £20. Assassin's Creed spin-off series, Assassin's Creed Chronicles, will be receiving 2 games in follow-up to the first game set in China, with Assassin's Creed Chronicles India due to release on the 12th of January, and the final part of the trilogy, Assassin's Creed Chronicles Russia, coming out less than a month later on the 9th of February. Each game boasts its own artistic slant, though core gameplay will remain familiar to those that played the China Chronicles, which saw the series switch from full 3D to more of a side-scrolling 2.5D affair. Each game is expected to release at around £7.99, and a bundle containing all 3 titles in the series will be available on April the 5th. Epic Games have finally released more than some teaser images about their upcoming game, and well, what it actually is. And that turns out to be a third-person MOBA, complete with 3 lanes, jungles, minions and towers. Expecting no less from Epic Games, Paragon certainly looks the part. The visuals and gameplay look great, but that's unlikely to change the love-hate relationship the genre has to many gamers, and with only 5 announced characters, the game might not have the variation people have come to expect. Paragon is due to release summer 2016, but will feature a paid early access option sometime in the spring. It's been about 2 years since Hi-Rez moved on from Tribes Ascend, leaving the game in favour of their third-person MOBA Smite. But a small dedicated team have been working on an out-of-the-blue update that completely overhauls the game. You'd think the community would be up in arms changing a game after so long, but in fact many were unimpressed with the old state of the game and its grindy unlocks, classes and weapon variants. But these new changes are more than welcome and change the game in a variety of ways, as well as adding a few new maps and weapons to the mix. The biggest change is likely the complete balance sweep the game has received, and looking over the patch notes, it seems no stone has been left unturned. But closely following it is a change to loadouts that is more familiar to series fans. Now you choose between the light, medium and heavy armor classes and decide exactly what your loadout is, even increasing the amount of weapons you can take with you. Will it be enough to tempt people back to the game? That's hard to say. Even with the impressive list of changes, it looks like tough going to get the word out, and it can be a challenging game to get into or even return to, especially going up against players that have been playing for the last couple of years, and those that were still playing clearly enjoyed the game as it was, so might actually be put off by the changes. There's a steep hill to climb for sure, but it's still excellent news that the game has been supported after all this time, and the game is still free to play, so if you fancy giving it a go, you can download it via Steam now. Helldivers, the cooperative twin-stick styled shooter from the developers that brought us Magicka, has finally released on PC and can be had now on Steam for £15.99. It's worth noting that during its time on the PS4, the game did receive a great deal of DLC, which can be had in a bundle for an additional £15.99, a deluxe edition featuring the game and DLC for £24.99, or be bought individually for £2.49 to £3.29 each, totalling a whopping £35.66. The DLC seems to largely be side grades, different options of weapons or vehicles to take into battle with you, and while not integral, does mean you don't get access to all the bells and whistles if you just buy the base game. The game itself is wonderful, pitting you up against 3 allies against a race of insects, a high-tech alien species and deadly cyborgs. You'll be trying to perform a series of objectives before extracting from a planet, killing many foes and quite possibly some friends as well, as the game features full friendly fire. Resource management is important as most weaponry uses ammo, and your additional supplies or tactical options such as missile launchers or mech units are in limited supply. To access the more specialised equipment, you'll have to call them down from a spaceship in orbit around the planet, an act that can be deadly itself, as players not paying attention can easily get squished by an orbital drop pod. Even calling in reinforcements when an ally dies can be a risk to those that are still alive. Levels are procedurally generated and have varying difficulty levels, taking place in a metagame where Super Earth is attempting to destroy 3 enemy homeworlds in an intergalactic war. The game can be played with keyboard and mouse or a controller, and both seem to have their perks. The game naturally feels at home with the twin analog sticks for smoother movement and responsive aiming, but I personally prefer mouse and keyboard for a bit more precision, though you have to get used to the aiming cursor appearing in the direction your character faces. It's a great game with some wonderful mechanics, and the theme channels a Starship Troopers vibe wonderfully throughout. While the DLC could put people off, it doesn't seem essential to the experience by any means. Nuclear Throne is a roguelike top-down shooter taking place in a post-apocalyptic, post-humanity wasteland where the goal is to reach the nuclear throne using a series of explosive weaponry and collecting radiation in an attempt to mutate new limbs, granting additional abilities. The game appears to be relentlessly intense as you perform bullet ballet, quickly dispatching foes and evading enemy fire, and is well presented with chunky visuals and sounds and responsive controls rounding off the experience. Nuclear Throne is available on Steam now for £8.99. Guilty Gear Xrd Sign has finally made its way to Steam and is a beautiful and deep fighting game featuring 17 characters, a tutorial mode to ease new players into the game, online battles, and a story mode that combines fighting and adventure games together with TV quality animations. It's a well-loved series and one I wish I could get into, but the mere mention of a Roman cancel system allowing users to craft their own battle strategy is enough to bring me out in a cold sweat. Love the look of these games. I'm just useless at fighting games in general, and the more complex they are, the more I flee rather than fight. If you're a fan of the series or were waiting for Guilty Gear Xrd Sign to finally land on PC, it can be yours now on Steam for £22.99 with an additional 20% saving until the 16th of December. The conclusion to Final Fantasy XIII, Lightning Returns, is now available on Steam for £12.99 and has an additional 10% saving until the 17th of December. A more personal affair this time around as you control Lightning rather than a party of adventurers, with a focus on action combat where you'll switch between outfits granting new abilities and statistics mid-fight in order to control the battle and defeat your enemies in some pretty challenging fights. As Lightning, you'll be fighting to save the souls of mankind as your last act before the world succumbs to darkness and is destroyed. This does however mean you're fighting against the clock. Time doesn't stop, which led me to feeling rushed and unable to explore as much as I would have liked when I played. PC release contains almost all of the console DLC except for Aerith's costume and sees additional graphical effects, but is capped at 60 FPS and 1920 by 1080 resolution. Freeze Me is a 3D platformer that certainly resembles the Super Mario 64 and Galaxy titles in more ways than one, with colourful expansive environments and a familiar moveset, but sees the addition of a camera the main character has that can freeze objects in place, opening up new routes and stopping threats in their tracks as you search the world for 40 golden cubes. I'm a little concerned the throwback visuals and rather unappealing name will put some people off of Freeze Me, but Super Mario 64 is one of my favourite games, so it's perhaps nostalgia taking over, but I'm rather looking forward to playing Freeze Me, which is available to buy on Steam now for £10.59. And if someone happens to mod Mario's jumping sounds into the game, I'd be pretty excited about it. The Mean Green's Plastic Warfare is a 5v5 third-person shooter played from the perspective of a green or tan plastic toy soldier, as you and your team compete through a variety of wonderful-looking maps performing a series of objectives. It's a rather no-nonsense game featuring 6 weapons, 10 maps and 10 modes, but I thought I'd highlight it as the game is purely multiplayer, so it will live or die depending on the size of its user base. While the combat looks solid if nothing special, the environments are well worth at least taking a look at. The maps on offer are more akin to something I'd expect from a modern Micro Machines reboot, taking place in a kitchen over countertops and sinks, a food-filled freezer, a toy train as it chugs around a room, and a table at a birthday party where you're tasked with making your way up a cake to light each candle. The Mean Greens is available on Steam now and priced at £10.99 and is available for £7.25 until the 15th of December. That's all for this episode of Recap. Thank you very much for your time and farewell.